Dr. Christy Taylor, career and executive coach and founder of Work Solutions LLC. And we are excited to kick off this episode of As a Career Coach. And you have submitted your questions, and definitely I have answers tonight. As you know, if you've been following us each month, we have been running the 21-day career pivot based on our book, The 21-Day Career Pivot. This book is available on Amazon. We run a 21-day career pivot challenge where you can sign up free of charge, but we ask that you purchase the book because it is really helpful in solidifying some of the things that we teach you throughout that challenge. But we are trying to make sure that we reach people at all levels. So as a part of this challenge, we are asking you to submit your questions, and I'm going to answer them live on the air on the 21st of each month. And so I'm excited to kick off tonight's episode. We have 5 questions that were submitted by viewers. And our first question actually starts with a longtime viewer and follower of Work Solutions, Adrian P. Adrian asks, when beginning your daily assignments that are ongoing, so my daily tasks that I'm doing day to day, what are things that you do in terms of preparing for the assignment? So Adrian, this is a great question because preparation is often the difference between really feeling reactive and feeling in control of your workday, right? And so it's really good to have a routine in place where you are really aware of what you're going to accomplish that day, because it really helps to motivate you. So when I wake up, when I begin my daily assignments, especially those that are ongoing, I don't just jump straight into the task. I take a few intentional steps to kind of prepare myself. I like to have a checklist. I keep a notepad on my desk. Even on this desk, I have several notepads of things that I'm writing and keeping track of, right? And I like to use a checklist. So I'm going to share a few things that I personally do besides the notepad and just kind of really start my day with intention. The first thing I try to do is I clarify the priority. Not every task carries the same level of urgency, right? And so what are the priorities for today? And I might have 1 or 2 top priorities, things that I absolutely need to get done, because we pressure ourselves enough. We're facing enough pressure from society. But we also want to make sure that we feel productive and we're getting the things done that need to get done. So just start by asking yourself a question, what is the most important outcome I need to accomplish today? And that simple question is going to help you focus. When I get to work and I set my day, I usually try to do that the day before, actually. But there are some days where I just can't. So one of the first things I always do is I just ask that simple question, what is the most important outcome I need to accomplish today? And I don't do this just with work. I do this with the calendar that I keep for my daily life. The second thing is I review what's already in progress for ongoing assignments and things that I have to do, especially as pertaining to work prioritization. I take a moment to check the status, what was completed previously, what still needs attention, and what deadlines are approaching, because this is going to help you again. Maybe you didn't prioritize it today, but maybe there's some things you need to make sure if you're planning for tomorrow, later this week, that you prioritize. You also don't want to duplicate processes. Third, I gather the resources that I need before I start. Now, this could be documents, data, tools, or communication from team members. And so when everything is in reach, then I can work more efficiently and try to avoid interruptions that break my momentum, because things are going to happen throughout the day, Adrian. It's just a natural part of the process. But I like to try to be as organized as possible. And I kind of approach my home life the same way. I'm a little bit more relaxed in my home life, but I keep a calendar with me of things that I prioritize. There are some things on my calendar that I write down. And then there are some things that are actually on my calendar on my phone. You have to figure out a process that works best for you. The final thing that I want to tell you is to have a clear plan for execution. So I make sure that I set my priorities. I look at what's been done. I gather my resources. Then I set a plan, because sometimes you're going to have work assignments that are just so in depth. And so you want to break those assignments or projects up into manageable pieces. So, and estimate how much time it's going to take. And there you are, kind of exhibiting some of the skills and traits of basic project management 101, right? These are things that are going to help you to stay organized. And this helps me because it helps me to ensure that I'm making steady progress throughout the day and that I don't burn myself out. So for example, right now I'm studying for a certification. I will maybe do 10 pages of the workbook a day, but I don't try to burn myself out with it, right? It's a little progress just to get, just to note that I'm making that next step. So my follow piece to you is like, when you are preparing yourself intentionally, you're going to reduce the amount of errors, you're going to increase your productivity, and it's going to help you to build confidence in your performance without feeling so stressed because you planned your day. So whether it's a routine or a complex issue, just take a moment to breathe, start your day with some clarity, get that sense of purpose, gather your resources, gotta make sure you check and see where you are now, right? And even appreciate the progress that you've made and really work towards structuring that day and meeting those deadlines. And the same way that you do this in your work day, you can use these same principles to manage your daily life to make things a little bit less stressful. All right, so here's our next question. This question actually came from Carol. Carol has also been a long time follower. She's participated in our 21-day challenge. So hi, Carol. Carol says that I've been working in an administrative role for about 10 years. Okay, and Carol is feeling burnt out, and she wants to transition into project management, but is worried that she doesn't have the right amount of experience. She also says that she cannot afford to take a pay cut and is not sure how to position herself for her new field without starting from the bottom. Okay, so first of all, Carol, I would just want to acknowledge again, thank you for being one of our longtime followers, and thank you for participating in the 21-day career challenge and submitting your question. But I just want to acknowledge something that's really important, that what you're feeling is very normal. It can, especially in this job market, right? And so many professionals reach that point in their career where they really, really want to move to the next thing, but they're afraid because they don't think they have the experience or the talent, or they think that they'll have to take a pay cut. And here's the truth. You making that career pivot is not going to be necessarily about starting over. You already have 10 years of experience. Okay. You spent 10 years in administrative roles. So right now, you're kind of undervaluing yourself and what you're bringing to the table. And so you already have these skills that, like organization, coordination, communication, problem solving, all of these things that it takes to be an effective project manager. So those are not entry level skills. Your time management skills, the things that you put into the last 10 years of your career, these are transferable skills, and project management is built into this naturally. So what I want you to kind of do is reframe your mindset. And I want you to think about when you go to PMI's website, the Project Management Institute, and look at the core competencies that they actually have for you to become a project manager. So maybe you're not there right now in terms of being able to afford the certification. But if you look at those core competencies, you probably more than likely done things in your administrative role that align with those core competencies that you can highlight on your resume. So the question really becomes, instead of asking, do I have the right experience? You need to just be thinking differently, right? How can I translate my current experience into the language for my next role? So although you may not be able to afford the certification right away, what can you do to continue to build your skills and to upskill so that you can prepare yourself? How can you translate what you already have so that you don't feel like that you're starting from the bottom as you pursue opportunities? Not every role as a project leader or project coordinator requires a certification. So there is a place where you can start. And let me give you an example here. So for example, if you coordinated schedules and managed deadlines, you supported teams, which all those things I'm sure that you did in your administrative role, those are things that you would do as a project manager. And then let's just talk about too the things of the fear about you having to take a pay cut. That fear is valid. I completely understand. But many people assume that they have to start at the bottom when they pivot, and that's just not always true. So I'm going to go back to how you position those transferable skills that you have and how you present yourself, not only on that resume, but in your interviews and in your networking conversations. As an administrator, no matter where you are, you have dealt with some level of project management. Listen to the words that I use, project coordination, problem solving, time management, organization. All of those are elements of being an effective project manager. So here's 3 practical steps that I want to recommend for you. As the first, I want you to identify your transferable skills. Okay, write down the tasks that you perform and connect it to project management. The second thing is I want you to gain targeted exposure. That could be, volunteering to lead a project at work. I always tell people, if you don't feel like you're going to get it at work, use something like Volunteer Match, which is now idealist.org, and volunteer, in your community to lead projects. But take on the coordination responsibilities, complete a short certification or training program when you can, right? You can take a class on Udemy or Coursera. You can do different things to upskill until you can get that official certification. And the third thing that I want you to do is start building your professional story, because it's not about you, the administrator. It's about those things that you did that place you in the position that you are in, and that is going to take you where you want to go, right? You need to learn how to tell your story. When you talk to employers, they don't just hire based on experience. They're going to hire clarity and confidence. That's what they want to see in the interview, because that projects competence. But you have to be able to tell your story. When you can clearly explain how your past work connects to your future roles, you're going to become a more stronger candidate. And I just want you to remember this. You're not starting over. You're just building forward with the experience that you already have. Okay? So, Carol, I hope that helps you. All right. Here's another question. This question who was submitted by Michael. Michael has been following us. He is new to Work Solutions and our Career Pivot challenge, but Michael jumped in about halfway through the month and he submitted a question. And so, Michael, thank you again for submitting a question to us. Michael says that I've been working at the same company for 12 years. The job is stable, the pay is decent, and I have good benefits, but I am not happy anymore. I feel unfulfilled, and I am thinking about pursuing a different career that aligns more with my interests. But the problem is that I'm scared to leave something secure for the unknown. I have responsibilities, bills to pay, and people depending on me. How do I know, Dr. Taylor, when is the right time for me to leave a stable job and to take a risk on something new? That is a big one, especially in this job market, right? And I'm always talking about pivoting. That's a big thought. So let's start with this, Michael. Thank you for being honest about how you're feeling, because you just described what many other professionals are feeling, and probably some of those same fears in terms of even what's stable. Feeling safe is really important, right? But feeling fulfilled is also equally important. And the goal in your career is not to choose one over the other. It is truly to learn how to build both. Now, one of the things I want to address with you, Michael, that I took down in my notes here is that one of the fears that you mentioned, because fear is not a sign that you're making the wrong decision. Fear is often a sign that you are standing on the edge of growth. But here's the key. You don't have to quit your job to start preparing for the next chapter. And so one of the things that I didn't see here in this question was, have you maxed out the opportunities to grow in your job? And I really recognize that not everyone will to grow in your organization. Not every supervisor is going to be open to that. And I don't know, if you feel like it's a safe space to come to your supervisor and say, hey, I am looking for that next step or next challenge. The other thing is so what opportunities is this organization offering you so that you can prepare for your next step, whether it's in the organization or outside of it? So let's consider every aspect of this, because like I said, you don't have to quit the job right away. You can make a strategic plan to exit, because many people, they think that career change has to be dramatic, like handing in a resignation letter and then jumping into the unknown. But it doesn't have to be like that. You can do what we call strategic career planning, because in reality, the most successful career pivots are strategic and gradual. And you are in a good place that so many people, Michael, are wish that they could be in right now, right? Where you can make the decision to pivot, and it can be a slow pivot based on what opportunities are available within your organization, if your organization is allowing you an opportunity to upskill, then you can upskill, and then maybe you can begin to transition out there. Okay, so instead of asking, should I leave my stable job right now? I just want you to ask this question, right? How can I prepare for the next opportunity while protecting my current stability? And here are a couple of things you can do. The first thing I want you to do is clarify what you actually want. So you're saying that this role is not challenging for you anymore. And is it the company itself, or is it just the role? Because if it's the role, then you could have conversations, if there's a safe environment to do so, with your leadership about what you're looking to do next, how you're looking to grow. Sometimes we know we're unhappy, but we just haven't really clearly defined what is making us unfulfilled. And so you need to get really specific about the type of work in an environment and responsibilities that really energize you. And that second thing is to build that transition plan, not an escape plan. So again, look within the organization, look outside of the organization. And then if you know that this is kind of DOA in terms of you growing within that organization, while you're making that transition plan, does your organization offer education benefits or opportunities for you to participate in things that you can use to build that resume? Start attending networking events for your desired field, and then look through again. Can you take on additional? So if there's no possibility of you actually growing within that organization, can you take on projects and other small side opportunities that would allow you to grow your skills and leverage your skills, leverage these things so you can continue building your resume as you make that transition. And then just test the direction before you commit to it. Again, you can volunteer, freelance, because all of these things are going to help you to build that resume and portfolio that you want. As you test these things to really kind of say, okay, I want to go in this direction. If it doesn't work, that's fine, because you are going to be reducing that risk, but you're building confidence, right? Because you're trying these things and really figuring out what is going to work for you. Leaving a stable job is not about being reckless. It's about being intentional. So one of the things I just want to say, security doesn't only come from your current job. It comes from your skills, your adaptability, and your ability to create opportunities. So the question is not, is it risky to leave? What I would challenge you, Michael, to do is to say, what steps can I take today to make my next move a more confident one, right? Again, whether it's inside or outside of the organization. Okay. Thank you, Michael, for that question. All right, guys, we had a couple of more questions submitted here. And, submit your questions throughout the month. Each month, again, you can participate in the 21-day career challenge free of charge. Each month, you can submit your questions through the 15th of the month. You'll see posts on all of our social media telling you to submit questions. You can reply to those questions, that post, or you can email us at success@work.com, or you can send us an inbox message on my LinkedIn page, my personal LinkedIn page. You send an inbox message, we will respond to you on any of our social media. Okay. So you don't have to, we can use a different name if you want us to, if you don't want this to be a public question. So just keep that in mind. The whole goal of this is to support you, to answer your questions, and provide you with a little bit of clarity. All right. We had a question submitted by Robert. He says that I am in my late 40s. I've been working in the same field for most of my career, but lately I've been thinking about making a change. Okay, Robert, now here's the problem. I worry that employers prefer younger candidates. I have had this question pop up so many times. Robert says, I'm afraid it might be too late for me to start over, and I still have many working years still ahead of me. But I don't want to make a move that could put my stability at risk. So this kind of reminds me of Michael's question, this great concern about stability. Okay. Robert says, is it too late for me to start something new? It's never too late, right? It's never too late for you to start something new, Robert. And in fact, we talk a lot about the behavior, mindset, outcomes triad. And this is a great example, right? I get so many questions about people. And it's a valid concern, being concerned about transitioning due to their age. But I want you to keep a positive mindset, right? Because that impacts in terms of your behaviors and that equals outcomes. So mindset, behavior equals outcomes. Just keep that in mind because this job market is already tough enough, Robert. And you putting extra pressure on yourself or added stress on yourself because you're worried about age, it is a factor that some, you can't, people are, sometimes they discriminate and that's not a good thing. But we can manage our own stress by knowing like you have all of these years of experience that you bring to the table and you are value added to any organization. Start with that, right? And keep the end goal in mind. So many professionals, they make some of their most meaningful career moves in their 40s and 50s because by that time, Robert, they have something incredibly valued that other people don't. And that is experience, perspective, and resilience. You have probably experienced many things in your career that you can bring to the table that offers a more strategic versus tactical perspective. I'm using military terms there. All right, so now let's address this concern about employees preferring younger candidates. Again, the fear is understandable, it's valid, like I pointed out to you earlier. But what employers truly value is not age, it's capability, reliability, and the ability for you to be able to problem solve. And like I pointed out earlier, everything is always a risk. I wish I could tell you that the world is perfect, but I also don't want you to underestimate the value that you bring to the table. Here's what I want you to remember, that you're not starting from zero. You are starting from experience, and that's your greatest advantage. You have spent years building skills, relationships. You have the professional judgment, the acumen. These are assets that younger professionals are still developing. And so the key is learning how to position your experience in a way that really highlights your value and not your age. Okay, so again, manage the self-talk and really lean into this is what I am bringing to the table. I made a career pivot in my 40s. So you can do it. Anybody can do it. It's all about mindset and you really exercising the expertise that you bring to the table. So let's talk about stability because that's an important question. We just addressed that same question with Michael, right? A career change at this stage, it's not going to be impulsive, right? It should be strategic. So it's me giving that same advice that I'm always giving. So instead of asking, am I too old? I want you to ask, how can I leverage my experience to create new opportunities? Because just some practical things you can do. You have the experience in terms of leadership, communication, problem solving. So how can you take those transferable skills and leverage that to be highly marketable across multiple industries, especially if you're thinking about making a total career transition, right? The transferable skills are things that you can leverage across multiple industries. The second thing I want you to think about is you need to stay current and visible. Are you active on LinkedIn? How are you learning new skills? How are you showing up? Are you upskilling? What are you doing to make sure that you're staying current? And then I want to go back to mindset, right? As you don't undervalue the experience that you bring to the table, Robert. Your career is not defined by your age. It's defined by the fact that you are willing to grow, adapt, and that you're taking those intentional steps forward. And so just remember this, you still have time to build something meaningful, impactful. You probably already have built that. And you're just transitioning to the next level, higher pay, more responsibilities, because you bring so much to the table already. And so really focus on those transferable skills and build from there and really be clear in terms of what you want to do and plan to do in this next phase of your career. Okay. Thank you, Robert. All right. So we have one final question. Nika, she is a part of our women's group. Nika submitted this question. She's been following our 21-day challenge. Shout out to all of the ladies in the women's group that we support here at Work Solutions. Nika, she says that I've been in operations for over a decade. I know that I have the leadership skills for a people strategy role, but I feel like a fraud applying for it because my background is all spreadsheets and supply chains. That's okay. How do I pivot my professional identity without feeling like I'm starting from zero? Okay. Nika, thanks again for your submission. And you're going to be a final question for tonight. You know, when we talk about pivots, you have those skills, especially working in operations, right? You had to have those relationships with people, to build those connections, to gather all of that data, do those reports. And it's about focusing on that, in addition to all of the things you did from an operational leadership perspective. You know, it's such a common hurdle. And I want to start by reframing how you look at those 10 years. You aren't just starting from zero, you're starting from experience. Because all the things I said, because in leadership, we often see skills gap where there's actually just a translation gap. And that's probably what you're experiencing right now. So how do we, bridge that and audit your human metrics versus, all of those numerical and statistical data? So operations, you weren't just managing spreadsheets. Like I pointed out to you, you were managing the people who executed those processes. Did you improve retention? Did you coach a team through a merger? Like, just think about some of the things that you were doing in the projects that you led. These are part of people strategy, okay? And you were on work groups and teams, all of those things that you probably did not consider in terms of your resume. It was just part of the overall bigger picture. But when you dig down deep, you were connecting with people. And then when you look at the power of operationalized strategy and the level of impact that you have, especially from a strategic standpoint, leadership teams love a people strategist who actually understand how the business runs. And so you have that business acumen. One of those core skills is going to be needed for you to understand how the role that people play in powering this organization. This is going to be, in my opinion, your superpower, right? This is that you know how to make culture initiatives work within the literal constraints of the company because you've managed the operations piece. You aren't just a dreamer, you're an architect. That's what you do in operations. And I just want you to update the narrative. Stop introducing yourself as the ops person. Like, it's funny is that I have a background in the military and I've served in several positions where I've been the operations person. The ops O is what we call it in the Air Force. It's really kind of like the human resources though. And so when you think about people and strategy from an HR standpoint and what I've done as an ops O, I want to give you that same kind of perspective, right? How have you impacted the human element? And so much of what you have done ties into that, because the bottom line here, Nika, is that you don't need a new identity. It's just how you're describing yourself and how you translate what you do into this new area that you want to transition to, right? So you have the skills, you have the experience, but translate it, then also articulate it in how you tell your story. All right, everybody. We are going to wrap up today's episode of Ask a Career Coach. I just explained to you, you can submit your question through the 15th of each month. Each month, the 1st through the 21st of each month, we run the 21-day career challenge free of charge. You can just go to our website, worksolutions.com, and sign up. And you can buy the book on Amazon or you can follow along. But we're here to support you. We want to see you get to that next level in your career. Thank you guys for your submission, for those who tune in. Hope that this advice helps you, and we will see you next month. Join us for the May 2026 21-day Career Pivot Challenge. Have a great night.